What if I told you that death isn't what you think it is? That the moment your heart stops beating, something far more mysterious begins. You're not plunged into darkness. There's no sudden void. Instead, there's awareness, sharp, quiet, undeniable. In the seconds after your final breath, you're still there. The world hasn't vanished, it's just shifted. At first, it feels like a pause in time, a silence that isn't empty, but full of presence. You're aware of your body, but not in it. You see it, maybe lying in a bed, on a floor, in a hospital, maybe even surrounded by people. But you're not panicking, you're watching, and in those first few seconds, the world around you feels eerily clear. There's a floating sensation, not dramatic like you see in movies, but subtle, like the feeling of slowly rising through warm water. Your vision isn't limited to your eyes. It's like you're seeing in all directions at once. You notice details with startling clarity, the wrinkle in someone's shirt, the exact way light falls across the room, the way the air feels, and then it hits you. Wait, am I dead? It's not a fearful thought. It's more like a quiet inquiry that arises from within. You try to speak, but your mouth doesn't move. You try to reach out, but your hands aren't there. Yet somehow, you still feel everything, not through nerves or skin, through something deeper. You feel energy, emotion. You feel the sorrow in the room like a wave pressing against you. You hear every whisper, even the ones never spoken aloud. You're no longer limited by physical barriers. What was once sound becomes sensation. Emotion becomes a language. There's a strange duality to this moment. Part of you is in disbelief. Another part has been expecting this all along. You realize you are not your body. You never were. It's there, yes, but it's more like a garment that has been laid to rest, familiar, but no longer needed. You wonder how long you've been floating like this. Time doesn't feel linear anymore. It feels like it's suspended, bending and stretching with your awareness. You could be here for seconds or hours. You can't quite tell. And strangely, it doesn't matter. You notice who's around your body. Some are crying, some are silent, some seem frozen, unsure of what to do. You want to reach out, to comfort them, to say, "I'm okay," but the words don't form. You're speaking with energy now, and most of them can't hear you, not yet. You hover near them instinctively, not out of fear, but love. You're not ready to leave just yet. You want to witness, to understand. And somewhere deep inside, you sense that you're supposed to be here for this moment after the end, that isn't an end at all. Your thoughts are more fluid now. They come and go like ripples across a calm lake. There is no fear, only awareness. There's no pain, only presence. You begin to remember things, not in flashes, but in waves. Moments from your life start surfacing, not in a judgmental way, but as gentle reminders. A laugh you shared, a kindness you offered, a silence you regret. It all feels real again, as if time folded in on itself and offered you a second glance. But in the very beginning, in those fragile first moments after the body stops breathing, the most startling realization isn't about life or death, it's about identity. You realize you're still you still are, you're still thinking, still observing, still existing, and it confuses you. You had always been taught that death meant finality, a hard stop, a curtain pulled closed. But here you are, aware, awake, and watching from outside the skin you once called home. The weight of the physical world is gone, but your sense of self remains, more intact than you ever imagined. You wonder how many people experience this and don't know what's happening. You wonder how many souls drift, startled by their own continuity, unsure if they've truly crossed over or are simply dreaming. But you're not dreaming. This is real, more real than anything you've ever felt. You float effortlessly now, no longer tethered to the weight of breath or bone. And yet, there is a softness to everything, a gentleness that wraps around you like light. There's no rush, no voice hurrying you along, only your own awareness, deepening with each moment. You begin to understand that what you are now isn't less than what you were in life. It's more. You're more you than ever. No longer filtered by physical constraints or social masks, you are just essence. There is, in this moment, a stillness so profound it vibrates. You're not part of the noise anymore. You're observing the world like a vast painting, every brushstroke alive with meaning. You see connections you missed before. You see how people are linked, not just by blood or words, but by energy, by intention, by love, and regret and presence. Everything feels sacred now, even silence. You look down again at your former body. It doesn't scare you. In fact, you feel gratitude toward it. It carried you. It held your experiences. It gave you the ability to feel the texture of life. But now you understand that it was never the whole story. It was just a chapter, and now, a new one has begun. You sense that this isn't all there is to the journey. This is just the first page of a much longer book, one you've only just begun to read. And as you float there in that strange twilight between worlds, a soft awareness begins to form. You're not alone. You can't see them clearly yet, but there are presences nearby. Not people exactly, but not strangers either. They feel familiar, like a song you heard once in a dream and never forgot. They're waiting, not in a hurry, just holding space for you, guiding you, letting you linger while you take in what has just happened. The question echoes again, am I dead? And with it comes the answer, not in words, but in knowing. No, you are not dead. You are more alive than you have ever been. You have simply stepped out of the illusion. The great forgetting is starting to fade, and something ancient within you is beginning to remember. You're still here, you've always been here, and now the real journey begins. What if your soul didn't take flight the moment your heart stopped beating? What if it lingered instead, right here, closer than anyone could ever imagine? The truth is, death doesn't rip you away from the world like a sudden wind carrying off a leaf. It's more like a soft unraveling, a gentle loosening of the threads that once bound you to time, space, and form. You don't soar off into the heavens at once. You hover. You linger. Because love still lives in the places you've just left behind. Your first instinct isn't to ascend, it's to stay close to what you've known. Not because you're afraid, but because you care. There's still a tether to your body, your home, the people you once held, and the memories you left folded into the corners of each room. It's as if the soul, freshly released, needs time to understand that it no longer belongs to the physical. And so, you remain close, silently present in the spaces that once made up your world. You see everything, your body, now still and peaceful, lying where you left it. You see the expressions of the people around you shift, confusion first, then realization, and finally that sudden, piercing kind of grief that feels like it might tear them in two. You want to reach out, to comfort them, to place a hand on their shoulder and whisper, "I'm okay." But you can't. Your hand is no longer flesh. Your voice no longer carries sound. What you are now moves through a different language, a language of vibration, of emotion, of presence. And yet, even though they can't hear you, you hear everything. Every sob, every whispered regret, every word spoken to the air. It reaches you like a song sung underwater. It's not just the words you hear, it's the energy behind them. You feel the ache in their hearts, like a pulse inside your own. You witness how they replay old conversations, apologize for things left unsaid, and hold on to the sound of your laughter like it's all they have left. You don't judge their grief. You wrap yourself around it, not to stay, but to honor what was shared. You find yourself drawn to familiar places. The chair you always sat in, the bed you slept in, the hallway where you had your deepest thoughts. Each one holds a piece of you. Not your body, but your energy. You feel it lingering in photographs, in favorite objects, in the soft curve of a loved one's smile. And they feel you too, though they may not understand it. A sudden chill, a light flickering, a feather on the floor that wasn't there before. You're not trying to haunt them, you're just near, because your heart still beats in the memory of love. Time, in these moments, becomes something else entirely. It no longer moves in minutes and hours. It stretches and folds, expanding like breath, and contracting like memory. You could hover beside your loved ones for what feels like hours, only to realize it's been seconds. Or you could lose yourself in a single memory for what seems like a day, only to return to the room and find nothing has changed. Time becomes emotion, grief makes it heavy, love makes it light, and the soul feels both. You notice how quiet the world is from where you are, not silent, just still. The usual noise of life fades into the background, and all that remains is energy. You begin to see the subtle threads that connect everything, the invisible lines of emotion stretching from person to person. You see how one person's sorrow ripples through the air, how their energy pulses in waves of longing and remembrance, and you can't help but be moved by it, not from sadness, but from the profound realization that love, real love, does not end. And in that realization, you understand why the soul stays. It's not lost, it's not trapped, it's honoring the weight of what it meant to live, and more importantly, what it meant to love. It remains for a time because separation is not instantaneous. Letting go isn't a button you push, it's a process of release. Just as birth takes time, so too does death. The soul needs space to transition, to reflect, to remember. And sometimes, those it leaves behind need space too, to cry, to speak, to understand. You watch them sit in your old chair, holding something that belonged to you. They smile through tears, recalling a story, a moment only the two of you shared. And you're there, not as a ghost, but as presence. They don't see you, but they feel you, a warmth, a knowing, a sudden memory that floats to the surface like it was placed there. That's you. You're not entirely gone yet, and a part of you never will be. There is no guidebook for how long a soul lingers. It's different for everyone. Some feel ready to move on quickly, others stay a little longer, like the last guest at a celebration who can't quite bring themselves to leave the music behind. The decision isn't forced, it's felt. It comes in waves. First, a need to observe, then, a pull to comfort, and finally, a deep inner knowing. It's time to let go. But before that happens, there's the linger. That quiet time where you realize that even though your heart has stopped, love continues. It flows through every tear your family sheds, every whispered prayer, every photo touched gently with trembling fingers, and you are there for all of it, not because you're stuck, but because you're still loving. In this in-between, you also begin to sense a presence on the edge of your awareness, a subtle but undeniable call. You can't quite see where it leads, but you feel it, an invitation. It's not urgent, it's patient, it waits until you're ready, and until then, you remain near, not out of fear, but devotion. You notice how many things now seem so small from this side of the veil. The worries, the arguments, the distractions, they lose their weight. What remains are the moments of laughter, the hands held during hardship, the kindness shared when no one was watching. You begin to understand the real currency of life wasn't time or achievement. It was presence, attention, connection. And this awareness becomes a balm for your own transition. The linger isn't a mistake, it's not a punishment, it's grace, a pause between worlds so the soul can witness what it created, what it meant, what it gave and received. And in this space, you come to see your life as something sacred, not because it was perfect, but because it was yours. You remember sitting at the kitchen table, listening to rain against the window. You remember the sound of your child's laughter echoing through the hallway. You remember the nights you cried in silence, and the morning after when light found you anyway. You remember love, so much of it you never fully understood until now. And that's why you stay, just for a while, to witness, to honor, to understand that even after the breath is gone, the heart can still speak. And what it says lingers, gently, like the soul itself, hovering between worlds, waiting to move forward, but never truly leaving behind the love it once knew. What if you could see everything, but no one could see you? In the moments after you've stepped out of your body, something strange happens, something that's both beautiful and heartbreaking. You're still here. You can perceive the world around you with startling clarity. The colors seem richer, the energy more vibrant, and the emotions of those you love are no longer just visible in their faces, they are felt directly in your being, like vibrations reverberating through light itself. But as you move closer, as you try to reach them, reality sets in. You try to speak, but no words form. You try to touch, but your hand goes through. You are present, entirely conscious and aware, but you are unseen, unheard, unfelt. It is a silence unlike anything you've ever known, not the peaceful kind that comes from stillness or solitude. This silence feels like distance wrapped in closeness, like standing in a room full of people screaming out for connection, but realizing no one can hear your voice anymore. And yet, you're right there. You watch them grieve, you see the tears, you hear their prayers, you feel their aching hearts as if they were your own. You want so badly to let them know you're okay, that you're not gone, not in the way they think, but they look right through you, lost in their pain, unaware that you're standing beside them. You try again to speak, maybe if you focus harder, maybe if you shout louder, but the effort is futile. There are no vocal cords now, no breath to push through lungs. What you are now doesn't use sound, it moves through presence, through energy. But they don't yet know how to hear that kind of language. So your voice, once so familiar to them, becomes a memory echoing in their minds, instead of a sound vibrating through the air. This is the first great fracture between the physical and the spiritual. The first undeniable truth that your form has changed. You haven't vanished, you've simply stepped into another frequency. Like a radio station slightly out of tune, you're still broadcasting, but the people you love are locked into a different channel, and so, you watch, helpless, but not hopeless. At first, it's disorienting. You don't feel pain, not in the way you used to, but there's a kind of ache that forms in your awareness, a longing, a realization. You no longer belong to the world in the same way. You're not part of the conversations happening around you. You're not the one being looked at anymore. You're the invisible presence, the silence between their sentences, the shadow of a memory trying to become real again. You move through your home like a traveler in a dream. Every room holds pieces of you. The mug on the counter, the shoes by the door, the notes you left on the fridge. Everything looks exactly as you remember it, but none of it responds to your presence anymore. You touch a surface out of habit, but your hand passes through. You call out a name, but it fades into the stillness. The world has grown quieter, but not because it changed, because you did. There is a moment in this in-between space where something inside you shifts. You stop trying to be heard, not out of defeat, but out of understanding. You realize that your presence still matters, even if it can't be measured in sound or weight. The people you love may not hear your voice, but they feel something. A sudden breeze in a room with closed windows, the hair on their arms rising with no explanation, the inexplicable comfort in their chest when they're sure they're alone. It's not nothing. It's you. But you can't control it. You can't force the signs. You can only offer your presence like an open hand, and hope that in their quietest moments, they'll reach out and feel you there. You begin to understand that what you're experiencing isn't a punishment, it's a lesson, a sacred one, the first true awakening of the afterlife. You are not your voice, you are not your hands, you are not your body, you are awareness. And awareness doesn't need to speak to be heard, it doesn't need to touch to be felt. This realization is humbling. You spent a lifetime speaking, moving, creating noise in the world, and now, in this state of pure being, you are asked to just observe. To let go of the need to control or fix or explain. You watch your loved ones cry, and for the first time, you can't rush in to comfort them with words. You can only surround them with the soft, unseen embrace of your spirit. And then something else begins to happen. You start to feel the pain of their grief, not as a wound, but as a mirror. Their pain reflects the depth of your connection. Their sorrow is not just about loss, it's about love. You see how deeply you were woven into their lives, how your presence touched more than you realized. And you also see the moments you missed, the times you were too distracted, too afraid, too caught up in the illusion of time to fully love the way you meant to. That mirror begins to show you something else too. Your life wasn't measured in achievements or possessions, it was measured in presence, in how fully you showed up, in how deeply you listened, in how gently you spoke. You see now that your voice had always been more than words. It was the energy behind them. And that energy hasn't disappeared. It lingers still, in their memories, in their hearts, in the spaces you once filled. But the disconnection remains. As long as your loved ones look for you in the way they used to see you, they won't find you. Not yet. You exist now in the pauses, in the breath between their thoughts, in the quiet moments when they stop crying and just feel. It's then that they might sense you, not because you came back, but because you never truly left. You begin to learn the subtle art of letting go while still being near. You stop shouting for attention and start listening for resonance. You discover that being seen isn't the only way to matter, that presence is more powerful than visibility, and in doing so, you start to find peace. Not because you're ready to leave, but because you're starting to understand what you've become. You are still here, but not for long. This state, this veil between, is only temporary. The silence you feel is not a void, it's a space, sacred, intentional, where your soul is learning what it means to exist without form, to be without needing to be seen. And so you hover, near your body, near your loved ones, near the places you once called home, and you learn, little by little, that what you are now cannot be defined by the world you left behind. You are not here to be noticed. You are here to understand. This is the first lesson, that your true self exists beyond voice, beyond touch, beyond recognition, that your soul does not vanish, it evolves. And what once made you feel alive, the sound of your name, the warmth of another's hand, was never the essence. The essence is still here. The essence is you. What if I told you that after you die, you don't just observe the living, you feel them? In those first tender moments after you've left your body, you come to realize something that was always true, but never fully understood. Emotion is not invisible. It's not a flicker behind the eyes, or a tremble in the voice. It's not abstract. It's alive, tangible, thick in the air around you. You don't just see sadness on someone's face anymore. You feel it move through the space like smoke curling through sunlight. You don't just hear someone whisper your name, you absorb it. Their grief becomes your atmosphere. Their love, your atmosphere. Every vibration in that room becomes a part of you. You stand beside your body, or perhaps float above it, and the room feels drenched in emotion. Not metaphorically, but energetically. You now know what it means when people say, you could cut the tension with a knife. Except now, you don't need a blade. You simply move through it. The sorrow of your partner feels like a weight in your chest. The silent shock in your child feels like a cold wave washing over your awareness. And yet, there is beauty in this too, because beneath the sorrow is love, deep, aching, powerful love, a kind of love that couldn't have been spoken in life, but now flows freely into the unseen. Words are no longer just sounds, they are frequencies. You hear the spoken ones, yes, the prayers, the cries, the quiet sentences whispered into the stillness of the room. But you also hear the ones never voiced, the thoughts behind the eyes, the regrets clinging to the heart, the silent apologies, and the thank yous that were never said aloud. You don't just hear them, you receive them. They echo within you, not like noise, but like truth. Even those who say nothing at all are heard. Their presence, their thoughts, their emotions, all of it ripples through the energy field you now inhabit. And this is where the next revelation begins to unfold. You realize that every word ever spoken in your presence had power. Every tone, every intention, every moment of kindness or cruelty left an imprint. The soul is not deaf to the heart, it is shaped by it. You begin to see conversations you had long forgotten, not as strings of sentences, but as exchanges of energy. You feel how your words landed in others, how they held them or hurt them. You feel how their words, in turn, either lifted you or left a bruise, and it is all still here, circling through this room, waiting to be witnessed. In life, you may have believed that some things were just small moments, fleeting, insignificant. But now, from this place, you understand there was no such thing. The quick comment made in anger, the soft reassurance whispered in the dark, the glance that carried forgiveness, or the silence that screamed regret, all of it mattered, all of it lives on. Every vibration you ever created still hums in the tapestry of your existence. And now, as a soul no longer tethered to flesh, you feel every thread of it. You listen to someone at your bedside mutter, "I should have called more." And the energy of that sentence hits you like a wave, not because you need their guilt, but because you feel the love hiding inside it. Another person says nothing, but places a hand gently on your shoulder. You feel that too. Not the pressure of the hand, but the sincerity in the gesture. You feel it like light moving through your field, a warm current of wordless connection. In this realm, intent is louder than sound. You sense how each person brings their own emotion into the space. One may come in crying, but with a heart full of grace. Another may seem calm on the outside, but inside there's a tempest of guilt, resentment, and confusion, and somehow, your soul experiences all of it, not as judgment, but but as understanding. You're not here to condemn, you're here to witness, to feel, to receive. And in receiving, something inside you begins to shift. You begin to see the full truth about how sensitive the soul really is, how deeply it listens, how silently it remembers. You once thought that only big actions mattered, the grand gestures, the dramatic speeches, the obvious declarations of love. But now you realize it was the soft, small moments that left the deepest imprint on your spirit. A hug given without asking, a meal cooked without a word, a moment of being fully seen. These are the echoes that vibrate through you now. But the soul doesn't just absorb what is sweet, it takes in everything. You feel the anger someone never resolved. You feel the jealousy, the harshness, the words that cut, and you feel the echo they left in others too. You see how pain ripples out, not just from one person to another, but into the room itself, into the energy around you. And yet, this is not punishment. This is revelation. This is truth being made visible. You begin to wonder how different life might have been if everyone could feel the impact of their words the way you feel them now. If every person could understand that a single sentence can either cradle someone's soul or crack it open. You wonder what it would mean if we all lived as if every word echoed forever, not in fear, but in reverence. Because now, from this space, you see that they do. The most astonishing part of this chapter in your journey is not what others say about you, it's what they feel in your presence. You now understand that love is not just something you give, it's something you leave behind. You can feel their memories of you, vivid, electric, swirling in the space like constellations of energy. And as each person speaks or stays silent, your soul listens, absorbing not only the sound, but the weight of meaning behind it. And in the stillness between their words, you start to feel something else, something deeper: forgiveness, gratitude, release. Some of them don't even realize they're offering it, but their souls do, and your soul receives it. This, too, is part of the transition, this sacred exchange between the living and the departed, where both are given the chance to transform, one by letting go, the other by receiving what was never said in time. You're learning now that energy is not bound by language, it transcends it. You feel when someone forgives you, even if they never say it out loud. You feel when they hold on to pain, even if they pretend they're fine. You feel when they remember your laughter and smile through tears. And that smile, however faint, fills you with a radiance unlike anything you ever felt while in a body, because it tells you that your presence still matters, that you are still felt, that your life still lives on in the most sacred of places, the heart. Every whisper, every sob, every silence in that room becomes part of your final gift to them, and theirs to you. You're not just watching a goodbye, you're part of it. An invisible participant in a ritual older than time itself, the sacred farewell between souls that never truly leave each other. And as you absorb it all, the sorrow, the regret, the love, you begin to understand that your transition is not just about crossing a boundary, it's about receiving the truth of who you were to others, the truth of how you made them feel, the truth of what it means to be remembered, not for what you had, but for how you made them feel. In this space, in these echoes, the soul is shaped, not by what you take with you, but by what others still carry from you. And that truth is what begins to prepare you for what comes next. What if I told you that after death, there comes a moment when you meet yourself, not the version you showed the world, not the one you carefully crafted over years of habits and roles, but the real you. You don't stumble into it. It doesn't feel like punishment or judgment. It's more like a sacred unfolding, a quiet unveiling of the truth you've carried all along. There is no booming voice announcing the beginning. One moment, you're observing your loved ones from afar, feeling their emotions, absorbing their memories of you, and then suddenly, you're no longer watching them, you're watching you. And you're not just watching, you're experiencing. It begins subtly, a sensation, a shift. The surroundings grow quieter, even though the world continues spinning. You feel yourself being drawn inward, not in isolation, but in intimacy. You're not being pulled away from anything, you're being pulled towards something deeply familiar. And then, before you, it appears, not a mirror made of glass, but one made of energy, memory, light, and feeling. It reflects not your body, not your face, but your essence, your impact, your choices, the vibration you sent into the world. There is no hiding now, not because anyone is trying to expose you, but because the soul no longer wishes to conceal. The masks you wore in life, crafted from insecurity, survival, ambition, or fear, they begin to dissolve. One by one, they fall away like old skins. What remains is raw awareness. You see yourself with perfect clarity, not through the lens of ego, but through the lens of truth, and it doesn't lie. This is not a punishment, it is not a courtroom, it's a revelation, and it begins to unfold not as a list of events, but as a reliving, an immersion. You don't just remember moments from your life, you feel them again. But this time, not from your perspective alone, you feel what others felt in your presence. When you loved, you feel the warmth it created in them. When you hurt someone, you feel the sting you left in their heart. When you withheld kindness, you feel the emptiness that lingered in its absence. It's not about guilt. It's not about shame. It's about understanding. Deep, cellular understanding. You experience each moment as if it were a ripple in a great ocean. And now you're feeling where those ripples reached, who they touched, how they expanded or how they fractured. Every word you spoke now vibrates back to you, not as noise, but as energy. You see the difference between speaking from love and speaking from fear. You feel the weight of withheld forgiveness, the heaviness of silences that should have been broken by truth. And yet, you are not condemned by what you see. You are awakened by it. The spiritual mirror doesn't accuse, it reflects. It shows you who you really were. Not your self-image, not your reputation, but your energetic signature, the echo of your choices, the resonance of your presence. You see clearly now what you gave freely, your laughter, your warmth, your attention when it mattered most. And you also see what you withheld, the apology you never said, the hug you resisted, the kind word you chose not to offer when someone was silently pleading for it. You begin to understand something profound, that your life wasn't made up of years, it was made up of moments. And those moments didn't measure time, they measured love. You realize that the grand achievements you thought would define you now seem faint compared to the seemingly ordinary acts of compassion that glowed like stars. A conversation where you truly listened, a glance where you made someone feel seen, a moment where you stood up for someone who couldn't speak for themselves. These are the moments that shine now, and they shine not because others remember them, but because your soul does. And just as some moments glow with light, others ache with what might have been. You see the people you pushed away because you were afraid of being vulnerable. You see the opportunities to heal that you passed by because you didn't want to feel uncomfortable. You feel the sadness in someone's chest when you walked away without explanation. You feel the tension in your own energy when you chose pride over love. But again, you are not shamed, you are not punished. You are invited to see, to understand, to awaken. This is the sacred mirror, not a place of judgment, but a place of remembering. It shows you not just what you did, but who you were being. And in that clarity, something begins to unfold in your heart, compassion for yourself. You begin to see why you acted the way you did, the fears that shaped your choices, the wounds you carried silently, the stories you believed about your worth. You begin to love the version of yourself that struggled, the version that failed, the version that was trying so hard to be enough. And then, you begin to feel a soft current flowing through you, acceptance, not just of what you were proud of, but of everything. The mess, the beauty, the contradictions. You begin to see that you were never here to be perfect. You were here to learn, to evolve, to remember who you truly are. And each moment, whether filled with light or shadow, was part of that unfolding. The mirror continues to reflect, and now you begin to witness how you influenced others long after your encounters ended. The kindness you offered a stranger still echoing in their life years later. The courage you inspired in someone with a single conversation. The heartbreak you caused someone who later turned that pain into their own strength. You see how interconnected it all is, how no action is isolated, how no gesture is forgotten in the realm of spirit. And with this seeing, something deep within you begins to shift. You are no longer just a witness to your life, you are a participant in your own transformation. Each revelation adds to the fullness of your soul. Each truth you allow yourself to feel becomes part of your integration. You realize that this is not about being good or bad, it's about being real, about becoming whole. The mirror does not fade away when you've had enough. It remains until you've seen everything you're ready to see, until you've opened the doors within yourself that were once locked by fear or denial. And when the mirror finally begins to dissolve, it does so gently, like morning mist melting into sunlight. Not because it is hiding again, but because it has done its work. You have seen yourself. And more importantly, you have felt yourself. You are changed now, not by punishment, not by shame, but by truth. The kind of truth that brings liberation. You begin to feel a new energy forming in your spirit, a readiness, a lightness. You are no longer carrying the illusions of identity. You are holding the essence of who you are, and it is radiant. And now, as this sacred reflection comes to an end, you realize something that fills you with awe. The journey ahead is not about escape, it is about expansion. You are not being pushed away from who you were, you are being called deeper into who you truly are. The soul doesn't fear the mirror, it welcomes it. Because in seeing yourself clearly, you step into your next becoming, with eyes wide open, heart fully awakened, and spirit ready to soar. What if I told you that after death, there is no cosmic judge, no booming voice declaring you good or bad, worthy or unworthy? There is no tribunal waiting in the clouds, no gavel slamming down to send you up or cast you out. Instead, something far more powerful happens, something far more intimate. You meet your truth, not through someone else's eyes, but through your own soul's memory. You don't just remember what you did, you become what others felt because of you. It doesn't come all at once. It begins like a gentle unfolding, a slow peeling back of layers you've spent a lifetime creating. And then it starts, not as a flashback, not as a slideshow of events, but as an immersion. You are dropped back into your life, moment by moment, but this time, you're not looking through your own lens. You are feeling through the lens of everyone you ever touched. Not in theory, but in reality. Every interaction becomes an experience of dual perception. When you laughed with someone in joy, you feel their joy. When you said something cruel in a moment of pain, you feel their pain. When you offered silence instead of presence, you feel what they felt in that silence. This is not a punishment. It is not designed to make you suffer. It is designed to help you see, and more than that, to help you feel, because feeling is how the soul remembers. Words fade. Appearances vanish. But emotion is eternal. And, in this sacred space of reflection, your emotions become the map. You trace the geography of your life, not by time or status or accomplishment, but by impact. And that impact lives on in the hearts of every person you encountered. There's no external voice labeling you, no one standing over your shoulder saying, "This was wrong," or "That was right." You don't need anyone to say it, because you know. Deep in your being, you begin to feel the weight, or the lightness, of each choice. You recognize the times you acted from love, how it expanded in the hearts around you. You also feel the times you acted from fear, how it contracted someone else's light. You begin to sense how every action, every word, every intention became a kind of seed, and now, in this space beyond time, you are walking through the garden of what those seeds became. You feel the ripple effects, some tiny, some massive. A kind word you spoke to a stranger echoes through their life in a way you never imagined. A thoughtless comment, thrown carelessly in a moment of anger, left a scar you never saw. You feel it all, not to be blamed, but to be awakened. You finally understand what it means to be responsible for your energy. Not just the obvious choices, but the subtle ones. Not just the big moments, but the quiet, unnoticed ones. The way you looked at someone, the way you listened, or didn't, the times you turned toward love, and the times you turned away from it. The review of your life is not cold or mechanical. It's not a checklist. It's a deeply emotional, vibrational experience. You are not shown your deeds as trophies or failures. You feel your life from the inside out. You revisit a moment where someone came to you in pain, hoping to be held, and instead, you shut down, distracted or uncomfortable. Now you feel the ache in their chest. You feel what they felt walking away, not because you're meant to suffer, but because the soul seeks wholeness. It wants to know what it created, and it wants to grow from it. But here's the part no one tells you: there is beauty in this process, because you also feel the healing, the warmth you brought to someone who had almost given up, the moment you forgave when you didn't have to, the night you stayed on the phone when someone was at their breaking point, and you feel their relief, their gratitude, their hope, rekindled by your presence. These moments flood you like light, and you realize, this is what matters. Not the perfection of your life, but the sincerity of your love. You begin to see how interconnected everything truly island, how your actions were never isolated, every word spoken carried vibration, every thought projected energy, every decision sent waves into the field of human consciousness, and you, like every soul, were both a source and a receiver of those waves. You were shaping the world, whether you knew it or not, and now, you get to see the shape it took. There is no scolding, no shame, only clarity. And clarity is what begins to change you. The soul does not evolve through fear, it evolves through truth. And this truth, however difficult or beautiful it may be, becomes the catalyst for your next becoming. Because once you feel what you've given and withheld, you no longer ask what you deserve. You begin to ask what you want to give next. You are not defined by your past. You are directed by your awareness. This is the moment where your soul begins to choose its direction. Not because someone tells you where you belong, but because now you know who you are. And more importantly, you know who you want to become. There is a kind of spiritual gravity that forms here. The energy of your life, its dominant vibration, pulls you toward the next stage of your journey. If you lived with fear, resistance, manipulation, or cruelty, that vibration has weight. It pulls you toward experiences where you must learn what you could not see before. Not to punish, but to expand. But if your life was filled with love, with presence, with kindness, even in small doses, then your soul moves toward lighter realms, places that mirror what you've cultivated within. This is the universal law. Like attracts like. Energy seeks harmony. And your soul, having just felt the entire tapestry of your life, now knows what it's in resonance with. Not because it was judged from outside, but because it finally sees itself. This is the ultimate revelation, that you were always the creator, that no one comes to weigh your sins against your virtues. You come to weigh them yourself, not to condemn, to understand, and in understanding, to evolve. You feel both the ache and the awe of your humanity. You marvel at the ways you tried, the ways you failed, the ways you loved imperfectly but wholeheartedly. And you forgive yourself, not as a favor, but as a natural response to truth, because once everything is seen, and felt, and held with compassion, the only thing left is grace, and grace is what carries the soul forward. As the emotional waves begin to calm, you realize something else. Your direction is no longer about seeking approval, it's about resonance. You are not being sent somewhere, you are being drawn to a realm, to a frequency, to a place that matches what your soul has become. There are no gates, no guards, no tests, there is only vibration, and you now know your own. This is not a judgment, it never was. It is a revelation, a remembering, a mirror held not to condemn, but to awaken. And in that awakening, your soul takes its next step, lighter, clearer, truer. Because once you've felt the full impact of your love, your fear, your presence, and your absence, there is no turning back. Only forward, only deeper, only home. What if everything you spent your life chasing suddenly meant nothing? You find yourself drifting in a realm beyond time, no longer tethered to your body, your name, or the identity you clung to so tightly. And here, without the noise of the world distracting you, a simple truth begins to rise like sunlight over still waters. What mattered wasn't what you thought, not even close. The shock of that realization doesn't strike like thunder. It unfolds quietly, like a soft breeze carrying the sound of a distant song you once knew but forgot. You begin to remember what you never truly learned in life. It was never about status, never about the house, the title, the number in your bank account. It was never about being known by millions, or being feared, respected, or envied. Those things now feel like paper in your hands during a rainstorm, weightless, meaningless, dissolving with each breath of this new awareness. You begin to see your life from a new vantage point, not from the peaks of your achievements, but from the softness of your heart. And suddenly, what glows the brightest are the smallest, quietest moments. Not the ones you posted about, not the ones that earned applause, but the moments where you chose love without anyone watching, the kindness you showed when there was nothing to gain, the gentle presence you offered to someone in pain, the forgiveness you gave even when it hurt. These moments shine like stars, each one lighting up your path with a brilliance you can't describe. And the ones you thought would matter, being right, being admired, being successful, those lie dim and distant, barely a flicker in the landscape of your soul. You begin to weep, not from sorrow, but from the overwhelming simplicity of it all. Because you realize that you spent so much time trying to become something, to achieve something, to prove something, when all along, the only thing that truly mattered was how you loved, how deeply, how purely, how bravely. And that love didn't need to be grand or dramatic, it only needed to be real. You revisit moments you had long forgotten, holding someone's hand when they were scared, offering a smile to a stranger in passing, listening without interrupting when someone poured out their truth. These were not milestones in the world's eyes, but they were sacred to the soul. You feel their light now, each one a beacon echoing into eternity. And in contrast, you also feel the emptiness of the times you chose ambition over connection, performance over presence, image over intimacy. Not to punish yourself, but to understand. Because here, beyond the veil, truth is never cruel, it is clarifying. You start to laugh, even through the tears. How absurd it all was, you think. How elaborate the games we played, the competition, the comparison, the constant pursuit of more. You see how much effort went into building a self that could be admired, and how little of it mattered once you stepped beyond the body. Here, no one cares what kind of car you drove. No one remembers your job title. No one is counting your followers or measuring your worth in trophies. The currency of the soul is love, and that is the only wealth that comes with you. Everything else fades like a dream. There is something humbling, almost disarming, about this discovery. You begin to feel how universal this truth island, how many people you passed in life who were quietly carrying their pain, craving a moment of real connection, and how often you looked away without meaning to. You see that no one was keeping score but your own soul. And your soul remembers everything, every kindness, every cruelty, every time you showed up or turned away. But what surprises you most is that even the smallest gestures, the moments you thought were insignificant, now feel enormous. A time you let someone speak without rushing them, a meal you shared without distraction, a moment of genuine eye contact when someone felt invisible. These are the treasures you carry now. They were always the point. And you begin to understand that the soul doesn't evolve through accolades, it evolves through attention, through presence, through compassion, not because those are moral obligations, but because they are the language of who you truly are. You look back at the life you lived, and for a moment, you grieve, not for the losses, but for the time spent chasing what was never real. The energy poured into being liked, being validated, being impressive. It was never about being impressive, it was about being in touch, with yourself, with others, with the present moment. You remember now that love wasn't something to be earned, it was something to be offered, freely, without fear, without condition. And when it was, it became eternal. That is the most staggering part. You realize that every act of love is eternal. It doesn't end with the moment. It leaves a mark on the fabric of existence. It becomes a thread in the great tapestry of consciousness. And you begin to see your own life as part of that tapestry, not as a standalone story, but as one thread among many, weaving in and out of others. Every time you chose love, your thread glowed. Every time you held back love out of fear, your thread dimmed. Not out of punishment, but simply because love is light. And where it's missing, the light doesn't shine. And so your soul weeps, not in shame, but in reverence for how sacred each moment really was. You weep for the beauty you missed while you were too busy. For the people who were loving you while you were too distracted to see it. For the chances you had to be kind but chose indifference instead. And also, you weep in gratitude for the love you did give, for the risks you took to be vulnerable, for the hearts you touched without even realizing it. Those moments are your eternal legacy. This is the shock of simplicity. That it was always about love, not the kind that's spoken from a stage, but the kind that lives in quiet gestures and honest eyes. Not the kind that needs to be returned, but the kind that gives because it wants to, because it is who you are. And now, as you stand in this space beyond the noise, that love is the only thing that feels real. Everything else falls away like dust. There are no regrets now, only lessons, only remembrance, only the deep, gentle knowing that if you were to live again, you would live differently. Not necessarily slower, not smaller, but more present, more honest, more open, because now you understand that the soul is not impressed by what the world celebrates. It is nourished by what the heart creates. And the most sacred creation of all was never your image or your resume. It was the love you gave in silence, the love you gave without needing to be seen, the love that asked for nothing in return. And in this knowing, something soft and luminous begins to expand within you. It is the recognition that you are not lost. You are simply coming home. Home to the truth that was always whispering to you underneath the chaos. That love, simple, generous, unguarded love, was never just a feeling. It was the purpose, the path, the point, always. What if I told you that you're not alone in the moment your soul begins to let go of the world? After the review has quieted, after the emotions have ebbed and flowed like waves against the shore of your being, something begins to shift in the space around you. You've seen your life, felt it from every angle. You've awakened to the truth of love and the simplicity of what really mattered. Now, something new stirs, a presence, soft but powerful. You don't hear it with ears, you don't see it with eyes, but you feel it, like a subtle hum in the center of your spirit, a vibration that speaks in silence. It says, "It's time." You don't know how you know, you just do. A quiet pull forms in your awareness, not a push, not a command, but a beckoning. Like a door just cracked open, allowing the faintest stream of light to touch your soul. It's not harsh or sudden, it's familiar, and with it comes something else, company. At first, it's just a presence. You feel that you're being watched, but not in a way that causes fear. You're being held, witnessed with profound tenderness. You begin to realize you're no longer hovering alone between two realms. Others have entered this sacred space with you. They don't announce themselves with words, and they don't need to. Their energy speaks louder than language. You know them. Some you feel instantly. Loved ones who left before you. A mother's warmth, a brother's laughter, a grandparent's gentle strength. Their presence rushes in like wind through trees. You don't have to see their faces. You recognize them by the way your soul softens in their presence. There's no formality in their arrival, no ceremony. They come as naturally as breathing once did. One moment you were alone in reflection, and the next you are surrounded, not crowded, but supported. Not every presence is familiar at first. Some are guides you may never have met in physical life, but they feel like home just the same. They emanate wisdom, love, patience, and a kind of quiet, knowing that seems to stretch beyond lifetimes. They form what can only be called a kind of circle around you. Not a physical one, an energetic one. You stand at the center, not because you are exalted, but because this moment belongs to you. You feel their joy, not the frantic happiness of the living, but the radiant, steady joy of spirits who know what's coming next. They're not here to convince you of anything. They're not here to push you forward. They're here because this is what love does. It arrives. It shows up when you're ready. And now, you are. One of the most astonishing sensations in this moment is how complete you feel. As if all the fragments of who you were in life, the parts that felt disconnected, unloved, misunderstood, are now being gathered, acknowledged, held in sacred unity. These beings around you don't look at you through a filter of your past. They see your soul. They always have. And they welcome you not because of what you accomplished or failed at, but because you are part of them, and they, part of you. Somewhere in this moment, you realize, there is no such thing as death as you once understood it. The body ends, yes, but you do not. What you are now is a continuation, an expansion, and these loving presences are here to remind you of that. Their arrival is not a rescue, it is a reunion. It is the next step of your remembering. You feel waves of recognition rise within you. Faces begin to take shape, not like photographs, but like living memories wrapped in light. You remember a childhood friend who passed too soon, and suddenly their laughter echoes through your soul like a melody you thought you'd forgotten. You remember a pet, and that familiar energy is now weaving through your legs, warm and pure, as if time never broke your bond. You even sense souls you had conflict with, now standing not in anger, but in peace. They are not here to accuse or demand. They are here because even pain, when understood, becomes a form of connection. And then there's the light, not a beam from the sky, not something external, but a radiance that begins to grow from within you and all around you. It doesn't blind, it reveals, it doesn't burn. It warms. This light feels like origin, like where you came from and where you're going. It calls to you without urgency. It waits with the patience of eternity. And your companions, the ones who've arrived to accompany you, are not afraid of the light. They are part of it. There's a wordless exchange between you and them. You ask, without speaking, "Am I ready?" And their presence responds, not with yes or no, but with complete acceptance. There is no rush. There is no pressure. The choice to move forward is always your own. But now that you've felt the love surrounding you, now that you've seen the reflection of who you've been and who you truly are, you know that holding on to the old world is no longer necessary. The sadness that once made you linger now begins to melt in the presence of this truth. Your transition is not a line crossed. It is a gentle opening, a release, like exhaling after holding your breath your entire life. Your spirit feels lighter with every moment, not because you're losing anything, but because you're gaining remembrance. You're remembering the part of you that never forgot what you really are. A traveler of light, a spark of something ancient and vast, a being who came to earth not to conquer it, but to experience, to grow, to love. The souls around you understand all of this. They don't need to explain it. Their existence is the explanation. Some of them have walked the earth thousands of years ago, others just recently. Some have waited for you across lifetimes. They are not strangers. They are soul companions, guides, family beyond blood. You feel emotion rise again, but this time it's not grief or confusion. It's awe. Not awe in something outside yourself, but in the realization that this has always been true. That every goodbye on earth was really a prelude to this reunion. That you were never walking alone. That the most sacred part of your journey has just begun. And so you stand at this threshold, wrapped in the presence of those who love you, feeling the call of the light growing stronger, not as a demand, but as an invitation. You realize the journey ahead is not an escape, it's a homecoming. You are not being taken, you are being welcomed. You take one more glance at the world you're leaving, not with sadness, but with peace, not with regret, but with gratitude. It was never perfect, but it was real. And now, with the love of countless souls surrounding you, with the light of remembrance illuminating your path, you begin to move, not away from life, but deeper into it, into the life beyond form, into the truth that love never ends, and you were never lost. You were always being guided, until now, when the guides themselves arrive to walk with you into forever. What if I told you that even after death, you still have to choose? Not everything ends with the final breath. In fact, some things only begin, and one of the most mysterious moments comes not at the point of dying, but just after, when you realize that you're not bound to the body anymore, but you're also not fully gone. There is something else. A pull, a whisper, a direction without form or name. And yet, even with all the peace and clarity that has begun to bloom in your awareness, something inside you hesitates, because now, you stand at the invisible edge between two worlds. You're not quite here, and not quite there. You feel the pull, soft, steady, like a current running underneath your consciousness. It doesn't shout, it doesn't command, it calls. It invites. And with that invitation comes a decision you never expected to face. Do you follow the call into the light that grows stronger by the moment? Or do you linger, hovering near the world you knew, near the people you love, near the identity you once wore? There's no judgment either way, no consequence being threatened, no divine voice warning of mistakes, but the moment is real, and the feeling is profound. You are torn between two truths. One says, there is more for you now. The other says, but look what you're leaving behind. You glance back. Time is no longer linear, but somehow, the past still pulses with familiarity. You feel the emotional imprints you left behind, the unfinished words still hanging in the air, the people whose hearts carry your absence like a silent ache. You want to comfort them. You want to stay until the tears dry, until the memories grow soft, until they can breathe again without your name catching in their throat. And yet, something is calling you forward, something sacred, something ancient, something vast. You notice that other souls around you are feeling the same pull, and not all respond the same. Some surrender almost immediately. You feel them lift, their energy rising like a mist caught in sunlight, moving into higher frequencies, merging with a brilliance beyond your reach. They don't vanish, they expand. And even as they go, you feel their love remain, like footprints left on a shoreline. Others, though, hesitate. They stay close to the earth, close to the familiar. Not because they are trapped, but because they are not yet ready. Some want to help the grieving, others feel bound by guilt, regret, or attachment, and a few simply don't understand that they've died. To them, everything still feels real, even though the world can no longer see them. You are somewhere in between. You feel the upward current growing stronger, like gravity in reverse. It tugs gently at your soul, like a hand reaching out in complete trust. And you know, beyond thought, beyond belief, that following it will bring you to a realm where peace flows like air and love is no longer fragmented. But still, you look down. You see the faces of those you love. You sense their prayers, their longing, their confusion. You wonder if your leaving will deepen their pain. You wonder if you're abandoning them too soon. And then you remember, love is not bound by form. You're already connected to them in ways that don't require a body, a voice, or even presence. You've already left an imprint that time cannot erase. Your energy, your love, continues to whisper to them in dreams, in intuition, in sudden moments of calm they cannot explain. You are not leaving them, you are evolving beyond the illusion that separation ever existed. Still, the pull grows stronger. It is not a force of urgency, it is a call to truth. You begin to feel what lies ahead, not in detail, but in essence. There is something vast above you. A realm where everything vibrates with clarity. A place where you remember not just your last lifetime, but your soul's long journey. You sense guides waiting there. Teachers, companions from before time. The light itself seems to pulse